Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. I thought we'd start off 2024 with a bang. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the best Bombard Tower civilizations. Bombard Towers can be pretty useful for a few reasons. They help establish map control in a relatively permanent way, especially in choke points. They need just a few shots against many high-value units, dealing a lot more damage than a similar stone investment of castles or keeps, for example, and they're also a great way to get around population limit issues in the very late game. At the same time, despite being available to 17 different civilizations, they're admittedly kind of rare to see due to a few drawbacks. First, they're quite expensive, not just in terms of stone, but also have a significant gold cost. You then need chemistry on top of a specific Bombard Tower tech in Imperial Age to unlock them, and third, they compete with castles for your limited stone, dampening your ability to mass unique units and trebuchets. For all these reasons, you tend to see them mostly from just a select handful of civilizations, primarily on team games or deathmatch, though occasionally on 1v1 closed maps with regular settings as well. For this list, I'll consider a good Bombard Tower civ to be one that has either some sort of stat or direct advantage, offers something to help along with the expensive process of teching into or building lots of towers, with then some consideration given to how well they complement the civ's ideal late game army composition. I originally wanted to do a top 5 here, but there's really 6, in my opinion, worth highlighting in some detail, so that's what I went with. Starting off at number 6, we have the Chinese. Strangely, they never figured out how to put them at ground level, but in towers, their bombards are well above average. Right away, it's a little easier for them to tech into Bombard Towers with a 15% Imperial Age discount on chemistry and the Bombard Tower tech. Technically, that only saves about 250 resources, but remember they also get a discount on masonry, architecture, and other university techs you want to grab. If we factor in all those relevant upgrades in Imperial, you could potentially save more like 500 resources, which is starting to get up there. On top of that, Chinese have a unique tech increasing the HP of their towers and walls by 30%, in addition to the effect of masonry and architecture, giving their Bombard Towers the highest HP in the game. I should note this has the trade-off though of costing stone, putting it in some pretty exclusive company, along with at this point only murder holes and Teuton's crenellations. You also have to consider how well Bombard Towers pair with Chinese units, which are otherwise more about cost efficiency and large numbers rather than overwhelming raw power. The Bombard Tower gives you something that can potentially protect your units against onagers and give them a place to fall back to, or just add a lot of population efficiency in a choke point, which is a niche nothing else in the Chinese tech tree really addresses, besides arguably scorpions, which have their own issues and counters. Of course, the flip side is the stone cost of towers means fewer potential castles for amassing Chukunu, which is definitely something to consider, though altogether, for being much more resilient than usual, they make number 6 on the list. Next up, at number 5, we have the Byzantines. Right away, they seem to give a strict upgrade over Chinese by having not 30% but 40% more HP than usual, while also not requiring a unique tech for that benefit. The flip side is they lack masonry and architecture though, meaning they eventually end up about 400 HP behind Chinese. In general, missing armor from those techs doesn't hurt Byzantines, and HP is the most important factor against bombard cannons, trebuchets, or rams, with Byzantines automatically taking at least one more hit from popular counters than a usual civilization with masonry and architecture, but a few shots less than Chinese. Like Chinese, they also have a unique tech in play here as well, this time giving a better blast radius with each attack. It's actually not super impressive, doing just 1/4 the regular damage to a nearby unit in the best case scenario where they're super bunched up. So it's not a huge improvement at first glance, but technically does make them better than generic towers in terms of damage, and is now somewhat unusual among blast damage for no longer having friendly fire either, so there isn't any drawback to getting this. Again, like Chinese, I really like how the Bombard Tower suits the Byzantines' late game composition of generally trash and cheap counter units, which help offset the Bombard Tower's gold cost as well as benefit from its ability to make a more permanent presence on the map. The unique unit is also a little more situational and expensive to tech into, so it's not as common as the Chukunu in my experience, meaning Byzantines aren't as hurt by missing out on a castle or two. As a full package, especially with the newish unique tech making them stand out a little, I think it's enough for number 5 on the list. Moving on, at number 4 is the quintessential tower civilization, the Koreans. While Koreans' unique tech for more tower range doesn't actually apply to Bombard Towers, and you generally see them make the regular tower line more often, they still have some things working in their Bombard Towers' favor. First, their stone miners work 20% faster, which is obviously helpful for any sort of tower strategy. You also get the Bombard Tower upgrade for free after researching chemistry, saving 1,200 resources right there. They also complement the Koreans' generally slower but powerful late-game army, giving you a little extra punch and a place for your ranged units to retreat to. And Koreans also add in the complete university tech tree, so you can fully upgrade their defenses with things like masonry and treadmill crane. Altogether, they're a little faster to tech into and more able to afford towers in general, enough in my opinion to put them ahead of Byzantines and Chinese. Previously, they might have even been higher on this list, back when they had faster fortification construction, but of course that bonus has been removed for a while now. Next up, at number 3, is somewhat related to that point, though maybe somewhat unexpected. I'm going with the Spanish. At first, this might seem like a mistake, or I've misunderstood their bonuses, but bear with me. While Spanish have a few gunpowder bonuses, like faster firing gunpowder units and faster moving cannon galleon projectiles that track units automatically, both bonuses have no effect on Bombard Towers at all. While Spanish are a great gunpowder civilization, even having that as an official label, their towers don't really get in on that action. Instead, what puts them on the list here is their villagers. Not only do they build 30% faster, but remember Spanish have supremacy as well, giving them double the usual HP with some extra armor thrown in as well. That combination means if Spanish really want to put their Bombard Towers in your face, it's going to be pretty hard to stop them. The Spanish trade bonus and little bit of extra gold from techs can also be thrown in if you're not totally sold they're ahead of Byzantines, Chinese, or Koreans. But practically speaking, the villagers make them even more dangerous in my opinion. Next up, at number 2, we're going to move next door to the Portuguese, who have a few different advantages. First, like the others, there's a bit of help in teching into the Bombard Tower, with this time faster research techs, saving 32 seconds back-to-back in this case. Second is their unique tech Arquebus, which speeds up Bombard Tower projectiles, making them a little harder to dodge. All Bombard Towers are affected by ballistics, but Arquebus also gives that effect in case you haven't gotten ballistics yet. That ability to hit units more consistently with faster projectiles addresses one of the main issues with Bombard Towers, as the very slow cannonballs can often miss any units that change directions. The other major limitation of Bombard Towers in general is you run out of stone on the map, and it gets pretty expensive to buy at the market past a certain point, which Portuguese have a unique way to deal with through their Feitoria. While it costs 350 gold and 300 stone up front, it gives you a permanent source of those resources. Admittedly, it's a pretty long-term investment, especially for stone, with a roughly 17-minute payback time, but Bombard Towers themselves also have a way of slowing everything down and prolonging games. Of course, towers also help with the population efficiency aspect of Feitorias, as towers aren't restricted at all in the number you can create. They then pair particularly well with organ guns, hand cannoneers, or Portuguese bombard cannons to cover them against things like onagers. That combo makes Portuguese one of the more natural civs to use Bombard Towers in even 1v1 games, particularly on a map like Arena, where between some relics and Feitorias, you can get into those really long grindy sorts of endgames, where Bombard Towers become key to entrenching any progress you make on the map. Now before we get to number 1, I have 3 quick honorable mentions that I didn't want to completely ignore on this list. The first is the Italians, who have a 33% university tech discount, meaning it's quite a bit cheaper to tech into and upgrade your Bombard Towers. Ultimately, they just didn't stand out in any other way, so I couldn't justify them ahead of the durability of Chinese or Byzantines, and they're far behind Koreans getting Bombard Tower free, for example, but are maybe the unofficial number 7 on the list. Another above-average civ is the Poles, who don't just have a bonus for their stone miners generating a bit of gold that's useful for obvious reasons, but similar to Spanish, have some self-healing villagers that make them hold up a little better than usual on the front lines. The last one is the Teutons. They of course get murder holes for free and have plus 10 garrison space, doubling how many units can be garrisoned inside. As a now well-known piece of AoE2 trivia, this opens some weird interactions, where you can have some very high DPS ranged units inside of them and fire not just 1, but 2 or even more projectiles at once. The problem is this is very dependent on allies to get those high numbers, and the whole point is it's just preserving those units' DPS, not actually improving it, while also focusing all the projectiles on a single target. So it's generally not something where you'd run into a lot of use cases for in practice, though it did have to be mentioned. And finally, we come to the number 1 Bombard Tower civilization, which in my opinion has to be the Turks. First, you get a massive head start teching into Bombard Tower with not just free and instantaneous chemistry, but then a 50% discount on the Bombard Tower upgrade itself. What pushes them over the top though is their unique tech artillery, giving them +2 range, with that tech also no longer costing stone, making it way easier to justify getting in the last few years. With Bracer, that brings their Bombard Towers up to 13 range, enough to match even a Bombard cannon with Siege Engineers. That essentially removes one of the 3 units they're most vulnerable to, as well as just gives you a lot more map control, being especially annoying against things like castles, which can't fire back. In the greater context of Turks, remember they're already very gold reliant, and going with Bombard Towers does make that process of burning through gold even faster. But on a team game where gold income can be relatively predictable and you have a lot of stone on your team to work with, Turk Bombard Towers are just incredibly annoying to deal with, especially in combination with their Bombard cannons to snipe any trebuchets or rams. That'll do it for this one though. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.